Welcome back to another Sunday prep day. If you're new here, every Sunday I prep for the week, so that means cutting all my vegetables and making things that take a little bit longer. So today I'm gonna make some salsa and I'm gonna make some not butternut squash, pumpkin soup. So I'm gonna start off by cutting up some onions, as I usually do. And these are gonna go in some hutspot and some soup. And I actually just realized that I forgot my laptop where I have my meal plan, so 1 second. So that's one white onion done for my soup. Then I have some yellow onions. I've written down one, but as I was grabbing them I realized these are really small, so I'm just doing 2 of these small ones. And these are gonna go in the hutspot. So as I cut these up, I'll go over my meal plan. Now that I brought my laptop downstairs. For lunch today, as usually on Sunday, I'm gonna have some sandwiches. I have some chicken breast, and I have some whole wheat rolls. So if you are new here, I am diabetic. I had to cut some carbs, so I mostly cut them from lunch. I have low carb, keto friendly lunches most days, except on the weekend when I have my cheat days. So, and also, let's get this out of the way now. When I go over my menu, you won't hear breakfast mentioned because I don't really eat breakfast. I'm just not a breakfast person. The thought of having to shove food in my mouth first thing in the morning just does not appeal to me whatsoever. So, yeah, then we'll get on with dinner. Dinners are not low carb, they're just regular dinners. So tonight I'm gonna have some hutspot, which is a classic Dutch stamppot. And if you don't know what a stamppot is, that is potatoes mashed with some kind of vegetable, and hutspot is a classic one with carrots and onions. So, and I'll film myself making that tonight, and I'll include that in part of a video with several stamppot that will come out within the next couple of weeks. I need to do a few more stamppot meals to fill out that video, because I'm actually eating everything I make, so I'll have to spread that out a bit. And by the way, what I'm doing now is just take some of these pearl onions or shallots and just cut them into rough chunks, because those are going to go in my salsa. You can use a regular onion for that as well, but I have these small ones, so why not? It's a good way to use them up. And then I'm going to cut up one red onion for a few things like some quesadillas and stuff. So, oh, and while we're back on the meal plan, the hutspot I'm going to have with some pork chops. Then we're on Monday, Meatless Monday. For lunch, I'm going to have some pumpkin soup. I've been into soup lately for lunches, on Meatless Monday especially, because first of all, I got kind of bored with salads for a bit, but second, it's nice and warm for winter time, because we are in the middle of winter. There's actually snow outside. It's currently snowing as I look outside. So, you know, it's soups are nice. So, and I have a pumpkin that I need to use, so why not? Actually, for soup, I'll gather everything in one bowl, so I'll transfer this and I'll just reuse this container. But this is for soup, and I'm gonna throw in a couple of whole cloves of garlic as well, because I don't need to peel those for some soup. So, go in whole. Then I have a couple of more cloves of garlic for things like quesadillas, etc. So we'll chop those up. But yeah, we were on Monday dinner. I'm gonna do some curry, vegan, lentil and chickpea curry. And I made some curry paste last week that I will use for that. So let me just quickly finish these cloves of garlic. There we go. Then let's chop up some spring onions for Tuesday. I'm gonna do some lettuce wraps for lunch. So I'm gonna do that with some chicken, and I'll throw in some veggies. I have some peppers, some onion, garlic, chilies. I'll use some of these spring onions, etc. By the way, these spring onions I'm just gonna use in various things, mostly as toppings because it makes it look pretty. And I always buy them for one specific thing, a whole bunch, and then I end up not using all of that, so I use the rest for garnish whenever I can. And that's also the reason you can absolutely replant the stalks, but I don't, because I just don't use them often enough for that. And then while I cut up some celery for my soup, let's get on to dinner on Tuesday. I'm gonna have some quesadillas with some beef, and some onions, peppers, chilies, garlic, and cheese, obviously. And I'll just serve that with the salsa I'll make in a bit. And I always cut all my vegetables first before I make things like salsas and soups and stuff, just because it's a lot easier to do when everything is prepped. Do everything in the right order. So this can go in with the onions and garlic for my pumpkin soup. Then Wednesday, I'm going to do some Romanesco with some keto chicken nuggets. So I'll use some almond meal. I'll use some harissa spices, probably because that's my favorite at the moment, and also because I'm making them in the air fryer. The harissa has paprika in it. That will give it a little bit of color, because the air fryer by itself doesn't really do color that well for, on browning on things you put in there. So I'm just cutting up some of these cayenne. I'm not going to bother taking the seeds out. And these I'll use for a couple of things, like this red one. I'll throw some of that in with my soup, because color reasons and spice. And then I'm also going to throw some in my quesadillas, in my lettuce wraps, all that kind of stuff. So here I have one jalapeno. I will take the seeds out of that, because there's just a lot more seed and structure that holds seed. So I'll take that out, and I'll just give that a quick slice. Then we were on dinner for Wednesday. I'm gonna do some burgers. I have some rolls that I just need to put in the oven for a few minutes. I have some beef. I have some of that American fake cheese, like the slices. You know, the classic American cheese. And then I have some homemade pickles still. I'll throw those on, have some lettuce. Then on Thursday, I'm going to do some more chicken lettuce wraps, and I'll actually use up some of the salsa that I will be making, because otherwise I have way too much. And then for dinner, I'm going to do some chicken wraps. So I'll have some tortillas left over from the quesadillas, because if I'm by myself, I'm not going to use a whole pack of tortillas in one go, even if it's a small pack. So I always plan on using tortillas for 2 meals in a week if I plan to use them. And I'll have that with some lettuce, have some creme fraiche. You can use sour cream. I'll do some cucumber, etc. So a little bit of pepper goes in my soup, just for some added flavor. And then the other half I'll just chop up for my quesadillas, my lettuce wraps, etc. And you know what? I'll throw in a little bit in my salsa as well. And then I'll chop up this red one too. So we were on the chicken wraps, yep. And then Friday, I do fish Fridays. For lunch, I'm just gonna have some salmon with some broccoli. And then for dinner, I'm gonna do some oat rice or mixed grains. I've been into oat rice and mixed grains lately. And they keep going on, well, not sale, but a cashback offer. So I keep buying it as well. So good excuse to use them. And I'll just top that with some salmon. I don't know how I'm gonna marinate that yet. We'll see. And I'll do some more Romanesco because I'll have some left over. And maybe I'll do some sesame or some soy or something like that. We'll just see. Next up, I'm gonna cut up some of these tomatoes. These are gonna go in my curry. You could just use canned tomatoes, but I prefer using fresh vegetables whenever I can. So I'm just gonna cut these into some chunks to help them break down a lot quicker. So, and I think I mentioned already, I'm just gonna use the curry paste that I made last week. So if you want to see how I made that, check out last week's video. So just make quick work of that. And then I have a few of these cherry tomatoes that will go in my salsa. And the reason I've chopped some of these things up already, by the way, is because I want to have it quite chunky. And if it's all small, then I don't have to blend it too much, especially the tomatoes. I don't want those to completely disappear. So that's why I give everything a little chop, so I only have to pulse it a few times. And at this point, I realized that I should probably also put some chili in my salsa. Quite a bit of chili. And some garlic. And after I pulse this, I might also put a little bit of spring onion through this if I remember. Just for some texture and some color, just some bigger bits. I think that's enough for the salsa, so I'm going to save these tomatoes for next week. And next up, I'm going to take some potatoes for tonight, my stamppot. I'll just quickly peel those. These are really tiny. So I put 2 potatoes, I think, on my ingredients list, but these are tiny. So I'm using 4 of these small ones. Normally I get bigger ones. They're a lot easier to peel when they're bigger, but I was limited at the market. Well, the street market wasn't there, so usually I get like some bigger ones there. I just ask for the biggest ones, but I just had to buy them in the store now, so that's what I have to work with. Next up, I have a sweet potato that I need to use up, so I'm going to throw that in my curry. So I'll just peel that real quick, and I will cut that into chunks by cutting it in half first, and then just cut into pieces. It's gonna completely break down in the curry anyway, but so it doesn't have to be precise. And yes, this is quite a bit of sweet potato for one person, but I don't plan on using it anything else, so I guess I'll just have a very sweet potato-y curry. Then next up, some carrot. I'm gonna roughly cut these 2 for my soup. And then these 2, I'm just gonna take the ends off. I'm not gonna bother peeling them. And if you have, ideally, you have these big carrots that you might have seen me use. We call them winterpeen or winter carrot in Dutch. Those will be ideal for hutspot because you put them in like really thick julienne or batons. But since I have these, I'll just give these a rough chop after I have them, they will cook down. And yeah, the skin is quite thin, so I'm not gonna bother taking them off. And for Hutzbolt, you roughly want equal parts onion to carrot to potato. Next up, some cucumber. I'm gonna slice that up for my wraps, and I'll probably have some for my sandwiches today as well. And then next up, my pumpkin. So I'm just gonna cut that in half, scoop out the seeds. You can save the seeds if you want to, roast them, but I don't care for them, so I'm gonna just discard them. So yeah, you just want to take the seeds out and the little guts, everything you don't need. And now that it has a flat side, that's also the most stable way to give them a quick peel. And then I'm just gonna cut these into chunks. And like I said, this soup is gonna get blended, so I'm not gonna be too precious about it. As long as it's relatively uniform, it's all good. And even though this is going to go in the soup, I will keep it in a separate container for now because I like stewing down my other vegetables first and then adding that later before I put it in the pressure cooker. So let's see, next up, where's my small knife? There it is. I have some broccoli, and I'm just going to cut off some of these florets, enough for one meal, so about half a head, and I'll just cut them into bite-sized pieces. I'll just save that for another day. And here I have some Romanesco. And again, I'll just take the florets off. I'm going to leave the stem on, and what I don't use, I'll leave on the stem because that way it will last a lot longer in the fridge. So I'm just going to take off enough florets for 2 meals. I'll save that for another day. And just like last time, I'll just cut these into bite-sized pieces. And I do like Romanesco and broccoli, so these are probably quite big portions, but can't really go wrong with too many vegetables. And then the last thing for chopping is some cilantro, cutting off the stems, saving those for things like curry paste. And I'll just give that a rough chop. Actually, I'll cut it a bit finer. This is going to go in the salsa, but since the container is kind of full, there's lots of air in there now with like the whole tomatoes and stuff. So I'll give that a blend, and then I'll just mix through the cilantro. So I'm going to have it the right size for the finished product, because there will be plenty more space in that little container after I blend that. There we go. And then the last thing that I'm not going to cut, but I am going to use, is some parsley. I'm going to blend up my soup. I'm going to make a pumpkin soup. It's nice and orange. I have some orange things, white things, red things in there to keep that orange color. I don't want a big blob of green to mix that color up because it'll turn out brown. So I'm going to put this in whole and then fish it out before I blend it. But yeah, I'm done with all the chopping. I'm just going to clean things up a bit, and then I'll be back to make the soup and the salsa. So my Ninja Foodi is preheated on saute. Just gonna add a little bit of oil. I'll throw in the first part of my soup ingredient, so that's onion, garlic, carrot, chili, peppers, and celery. I'll add some salt, and I'll just give that some time to soften. And one thing I need to not forget, I need to soak some chickpeas for my curry tomorrow, because otherwise it will take ages for them to cook. So I'm just gonna take a few chickpeas and soak them in some water overnight. And then for my salsa, I have my onions, tomatoes, chilies, peppers, garlic. I'll add the juice of 1 lime. I'll add some salt. And after a quick battery change on my camera, I'm also going to add a bit of cumin. And I'll just give that a few pulses in my mini food processor. And like I said, just a few pulses, so it's still quite chunky. I'll take out the blades, add my cilantro, and like I said, I'll throw in a little bit of spring onion just for some texture and for some color. And mix that through, give it a little taste for seasoning. That's perfect. So now I can just put the lid on and put that in the fridge, and that's ready to go for Tuesday and for my lettuce wraps on Thursday. And in the meantime, my vegetables have softened, so I'm going to add my pumpkin. I usually make this with butternut squash, but butternut squash, pumpkin, not really that much different. And I'll just let that soften for a bit as well. And then I'll add some water. Make sure everything is submerged. I'll throw in my bunch of parsley. And then put my pressure lid on, make sure the valve is closed. Pressure cook. This should be about 20 minutes. Yeah, I'm just gonna let the pressure cooker do its thing. I could put this in a pan and put it on the stove, or I can do it in a slow cooker or whatever, but I'm gonna use my pressure cooker. But yeah, while that does its thing, I'm just gonna clean up a bit and I'll see you back in a moment. And that is the soup done. The parsley has completed its mission. It's flavored the soup, but I'm gonna just take that out right now. And I'm just gonna give that a quick blend with my stick blender. And that is the soup done. So all I need to do tomorrow is heat that through, and whatever I have left over, I'll just freeze for next time. I like making things like risotto with a pumpkin soup or tomato soup or stuff like that. So yeah, that's all the prep work done for this week, so now I can have lunch or dinner on the table in minutes. If you like this kind of content, I do this every single Sunday. And if you'd like to see what I ultimately eat, you can check out my Instagram where I post every single meal, or you can check out the video that I post about once a month on here where I show you a whole week of everything I eat in a day. And I'll probably do one again soon. But yeah, that's it. Check Instagram too if you want to see all the ingredients I'll be using this week and what a list of all the things that I prepped, etc. But yeah, if that sounds good to you, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching. Until next time, bye for now.